Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of This Week in the World of Football. This is episode number 284 for February 21st, 2023. I'm your host, Randy Snow. On today's show, the 2023 XFL season has kicked off, and has the first team in the rebirth of the Arena Football League been revealed? In honor of Black History Month, this week's history lesson is a profile of Charles West, the first black quarterback to play in the Rose Bowl. But I'm not here by myself. As always, across the table from me is my son Adam.
Yeah, I just got back from a long extended trip at Hogwarts School for Witchcraft and Wizardry, living out my dreams of being a wizard.
Nerd!
Yeah, well, the only thing that stinks is I can't play Quidditch in that game yet. But
Aw.
other than that, what a great time right now. XFL football's back. We have the USFL draft going on right now. What other football stuff's going on? The possibilities of the arena football returning. Randy Snow not being able to just ask a question, but instead he actually has to add the question mark on top of a question mark. What a great day here at the World of Football.
Yes, it is.
Oh, and we hit 200 subs on our YouTube channel today.
200 subscribers, yep.
What a milestone for us.
It was. It's taken a while to get there, but
yeah,
we're
and
there
then we've hit 204. I think we're sitting at 204 right now. So we celebrated a little earlier that we had 200, and now we got 204. So the journey to 300 begins.
We come to you each week from the fabulous World of Football Man Cave, located right here in the center of the football world, Kalamazoo, Michigan. We're here to promote the game of football in all its many forms, past, present, and future. Our goal is to educate, inform, and entertain our listeners with the glorious buffet that is the world of football. All this while keeping a close eye on the rich history of the game. Thanks for checking out our podcast. We'd love to get your feedback on one of our many platforms: Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and YouTube, where we post the entire audio portion of this show, as well as other selected videos. We're also on Amazon Music, so you can simply ask Siri or Alexa to play the World of Football podcast. So let's begin today's show with Adam and the World of Football scoreboard.
That's right, and the scoreboard shifts from the NFL now to the XFL. That's right, XFL 3.0 in its first season. Week 1 saw 2 games Saturday, 2 games Sunday. We first led off with the Arlington Renegades defeating the Vegas Vipers. The Vegas Vipers 22-20. Now Vegas was up in this game 14-3 going into halftime and ended up losing by 2 points. So the Arlington Renegades had a great second half, scoring 19 points. And as a Vipers fan, it was disappointing for them to let that up. But the Arlington defense came to play. Despite Luis Perez, quarterback for the Vipers, looking real good, 22 of 36 for 249 yards passing. He threw 3 touchdowns, according to the stat sheet here on the XFL app. I could have swore he threw an interception, but it does not indicate any interceptions. So apparently he had a decent day other than the team losing.
Yeah, Luis Perez has been everywhere. He's been in the USFL. I think he played in the AAF.
Didn't he have the first? He had the first touchdown pass in this XFL, and didn't he have the first one in the AAF?
I think it was the USFL.
And the USFL. I think he did all 3.
Yeah.
He might have all 3.
And he was on the Lions practice squad for a while.
Yeah.
He's been on a few other NFL team practice squads. So yeah, he's been everywhere. A Harlan Hill Trophy winner, the Division II equivalent of the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah, I mean a lot of great players, and a lot of great just unsung guys, making headlines. I think in the league over the weekend for the XFL. Names you're familiar with, names you're not familiar with. I think names that we're going to be talking about for a while, and I wish I could tap on these players' names in their app and actually say their full name. But Badet, Badet, he was a wide receiver for the Vipers. He had a couple touchdown catches, which were really nice for them. But kudos to the Arlington. Bob Stoops, and that coach team looked pretty well in the second half. It was a little sketchy at first, but they came out with it. Now I just feel like I'm treading water because you're not saying anything. Because guess what? You didn't watch this game.
Yeah, I saw some of it. I was on the road for part of this game. I started watching it at my brother's house, and then I drove home and caught the tail end of it, at home. But yeah, all the games were pretty good. I thought they were, for the most part, competitive, seeing as they didn't have a whole lot of practice time. They didn't practice in pads. 5 weeks of training camp, and this was their first time in pads playing against each other in a live football game. So, yeah, some teams did better than others, but overall, I thought it was pretty good for this first weekend.
Yeah. All right. So we'll move on to the second game on Saturday night, which saw the Houston Roughnecks defeat the Orlando Guardians 33-12. This is a game I missed because I had to work the next day, so I couldn't stay up late watching this
Yeah,
thing.
both these late games, 8 o'clock, 8:30 at night. Jeez, I was up till midnight watching
Well,
these
not
games.
everybody has to work on a weekend like I do, so most people get to watch these games. But, from what I saw in the highlights, Houston looked like the best all-around team this weekend.
Yeah,
That defense stepped up. That offense had some playmakers on it, even without who was their quarterback? Walker. What was it? It was in the last XFL that played with the Roughnecks, and he was just with the Carolina Panthers. And you're not helping me out over there.
not Tama.
PJ Walker.
Oh yes, him.
There we go.
Okay.
God, you're a deer in
Hey,
the headlights over there.
I'm
You
terrible
can't.
with names. If I don't have him in front of me, I
PJ
can't pull 'em out
Walker.
half
They
the
didn't
time.
have him at quarterback. The guy they did have at quarterback looked pretty sharp. I'm trying to figure out his name right here. Silvers, that was his last name. He was slinging it around, threw 2 touchdowns, had 272 yards passing. So, I don't know if he's as athletic as PJ Walker was, but he got the job done. And like we said, that makes the Roughnecks look like the best team so far after 1 week.
Yeah, they were pretty consistent all game long. Some teams played bad, in the first half or the second half or whatever, but Houston was just steady all game long, running the ball, passing the ball. They were just a steady team for 60 minutes.
All right, and then probably the most entertaining game of the weekend, in my opinion, was the first game on Sunday, which saw the St. Louis Battlehawks defeat the San Antonio Brahmas 18-15. If you were watching this game, it wasn't much of anything until the last minute and 40 seconds of the game when it was super exciting, and we saw the full tilt of these XFL rules at
Yes.
play, which was
Yes.
the Battlehawks were down 15-3. They go down, they score the touchdown, then they get the 3-point conversion. That's right, you get
Yep.
a 1, a 2, or a 3-point conversion. There's no extra point kicking, which is
Right.
I'm okay with. So they get the 3 points, so you get your 9 points. Now they're down 15-12. So then they get the option of either doing the onside kick or doing the 4th and 15, which is something we saw the AAF do, which was then adopted by the XFL and now XFL 3.0. And I have to say, I was into that. They got that conversion, then they marched right back down the field, scored another touchdown. They failed the conversion, but they were up by 3 points, giving the ball back to San Antonio, who couldn't do anything with it. And the time ran out, and the Battlehawks got the victory in very entertaining fashion. You even got a phone call from my uncle, your
Yeah.
brother, saying, I saw what happened. I see what the result was, but I just don't understand how it happened.
Yeah, I had to explain to him the rules about, going for 3 points after a touchdown and the onside kick thing, getting the ball back and getting another touchdown. And after I spent like 5 minutes explaining it, he goes, "Okay, that makes sense now.
Yeah.
Now I understand how that all went down."
It was absolute craziness, but I think super entertaining. And I was on the edge of my seat for that whole, development at the end of the game. So fun and so good.
Yeah, wasn't there some stats? They were showing stats on TV, like how many yards
Oh yeah,
St. Louis had up until like the first 3 quarters.
it was like 62 or 4 yards or something for the first 3 quarters, like accumulative. Then it was like
Right.
100,
158 or something like
158
that.
or something crazy
in the
there.
last few minutes.
Yeah, just
Which
absolute
was-
insanity.
was.
But this is that little kernel of time there was exactly what we want the XFL to feel like.
Right.
We want that excitement, and it was fun. And they can bring something like that every week. I'm not saying every game has to end like that,
Right.
but if we get that every once a week out of the 4 games, this league is going to be a lot of fun to get eyeballs on.
Yeah, you'll never think that your team is out of it because of the 3-point play and the onside kick or the the 4th and 15. Your team's never out of it, even if they're down by 15 points or whatever.
All right, then we'll get to the final game here, which was Sunday night, which saw the DC Defenders defeat the Seattle Sea Dragons 22-18. Game I caught a little bit of. You watched the whole thing. I watched the highlights. Seattle was up in this early, and Seattle looked like a very good team. But then DC kind of came back with quarterback Jordan Tamau, who was with the Battlehawks in the last XFL. Now he's back with the Defenders. They look pretty good as well. They came back from behind, they were down quite a bit, and then they came back in this game to win it 22-18. But the big story out of this game, I want to say, has got to be the Beer Snake.
The Beer Snake.
Beer Snake 2.0
Yep.
getting wrecked by some security guards.
Stadium security.
And then lemons falling from the sky.
Throwing lemons at the players. Oh, my gosh.
Well, did they really throw them at the players? It's not the players' fault.
Well, they were throwing them into the end zone. Whether there was anybody in the end zone at the time that they started, the teams were like on around the 10-yard line, so the defenders were backed up towards the end zone when they started throwing lemons on the field, and the ref stopped it for a minute or so that they could warn the crowd not to do that, and then they continued play. But in some of the replays, you can actually see the lemons on the field and on the sidelines while the game is still going on. I thought they would at least stop to pick that all up, because somebody slips on a lemon going for a reception or something, and they slip and fall, they could get injured. So I'm just surprised they didn't have the sideline security guys running out there and just picking up all these lemons or something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we did a video on this, for those who didn't know. On our YouTube channel, we did go and talk about some of our first impressions from the XFL. We're going to talk probably a little bit more about those in a second. But I just wanted to throw people that way because I made sure to find a little bit of a clip that had those lemons on the field for people to see.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
All right, so that's it for week 1. And let's take a look ahead at week 2 real quick. Thursday night, we'll see the St. Louis Battlehawks travel to Seattle to play the Sea Dragons. Then Saturday night, the DC Defenders will travel to Las Vegas to play my Vipers of Vegas. The San Antonio Brahmas will play the Orlando Guardians on Sunday, as will the Arlington Renegades travel to Houston to play the Roughnecks as part of a doubleheader there Sunday. Great attendance, I feel, overall this weekend. 3 of the 4 games had about a 12,000 person attendance, which I think was pretty good. And then San Antonio, who was announced as the site, the locale for the championship game, had double the attendance of all those other ones at 24,250 people. Yeah. So pretty decent showing, I think, the first weekend. I wish we would have the numbers for the first week of XFL 2.0 to kind of compare them to. But
I think I saw a headline that said they were down a little bit.
I was going to say, I was thinking like first time around it was like 15,000 was probably the average. But hey, you know what? Good first step. I think a lot of people saw the play this weekend and said, hey, this actually might be good football. And we'll see what the numbers next week look like.
Yeah, if we can, maybe not report the numbers every week, but, just keep an eye and see, are they going up? Are they trending up?
Yeah.
Are they staying about the same?
I hope they trend up. And especially with, Seattle, not Seattle. I think the big jump will be when St. Louis has their first home game. I'd be curious with the Vegas Vipers getting their first home game, as are Seattle and Orlando getting their first home games this week. So be very curious to see what those fan bases look like coming out for those teams.
Right.
But yeah, so that's it for the scoreboard this week. And not really any XFL news other than the championship being announced. But like I said, we talked about our impressions of week 1 on YouTube. So I guess you want to do that again here a little bit?
Yeah. What did you think was the best and worst uniforms and or helmets that you saw this weekend? We saw them a few months ago on mannequins, and I hated all of them. I didn't care for any of them really. But seeing them on the field, you get a different impression of them.
Well, I'm a little biased. I picked the Vegas Vipers as my team, so I like the Vegas Vipers color scheme and their uniforms and everything. I thought looked great, even though away uniforms this weekend. A team that's not mine, the Brahmas. I like their jerseys and their pants. I like the collar design that they had, but I'm just not a fan of the helmet design. Lacks a little bit. I get what they're trying to go for, but it just needed something else to kind of define the horns.
They're trying to be horns, coming from the back and going around the side, but
which is fine.
But they look more like lightning bolts, like a Shazam lightning bolt or something.
It looks like it needs like some sort of outline, like the Vikings have on theirs,
right?
To kind of give it a little definition. But I mean that's a little nitpick. Yeah. Otherwise, I think they have a decent uniform. Another one I like, the DC Defenders. Their helmet is
simple.
Takes a little getting used to, but I like the stars on the shoulders. I just kind of like that whole look. So
the DC logo,
Oh yeah, I like the DC logo.
C inside of a D, and just simple, basic, but it works.
I like it.
I personally like the Battlehawks uniforms myself. Of
Yeah.
course, that's my team. But the silver helmet took a little getting used to because I was used to the blue helmet they had last year or back in 2020, and now they've switched to a silver helmet and the wings are a little bit different. So it took a little getting used to, but I do like those. And again, I agree. The worst is the promise right now. Hopefully they'll come up with some different kind of helmet design.
I still think the worst is the Roughnecks. I'm just not crazy about that helmet design.
With
Uh,
the two-tone
well,
black on
one
one
side is
side.
completely solid. The other side's got two colors on it. It kind of does look like a Texas flag. I'll give it that, but it just doesn't work on a helmet for me. It doesn't. I mean, in theory, it sounds interesting, but
Yeah.
I give it a big old F.
Yeah, at first I didn't like the Seattle helmets either. They're kind of
Oh,
a
those
orange.
grew on me.
They did. Towards the end of the game, I was like, okay, I get it now. But yeah, the green uh, serpent head and the orange color of the helmet, kind of a metallic orange.
But then I like the stripe. The stripe kind of has got like a tree pattern kind of design kind of going up the stripe there.
Yeah.
Hard to describe it when we're in an audio medium right now, but I don't know. I dug like there's some good stuff about every uniform I think, but I just think the most problems lie with the Houston Roughnecks right now, and we haven't even seen everybody's home uniforms yet in action, so I'm kind of waiting to
Sure.
see all that before we judge
And I
anymore.
think the Arlington helmet now is just way too plain.
Yeah, that
That
one I have a problem
letter
with too.
R that's kind of like
I missed the
in
cowboy
pieces.
head or whatever that was
Yeah,
from
they
the
should put
first
that
time.
back on the
Oh,
helmet. That was a better helmet
that
than
was
what
such
they
a
got
great
now.
logo.
But I guess they're trying to differentiate between the Dallas Renegades and the
Yet
Arlington
they'd
Renegades.
make it their secondary logo because the
Yeah,
head coach was still wearing that logo on his visor.
yeah.
So
What was the game we were watching where I think it was the last game where a guy took off his helmet on the sidelines and he had a Houston Oilers
yeah, the
bandana on
Tennessee
his
Titans.
Tennessee Tennessee
Yeah, it
Titans.
was that DC Defenders Sea Dragons game.
I thought that was kind of funny. But okay, so the uniforms there and the helmets, we've already given that opinion. What about the referee uniforms? Their black and white stripes are a
It looks odd.
little
It's like
weird.
the white of the stripes are a lot thicker.
Yeah,
And there's not as many stripes, so
right.
it just looked really weird. It looked like a bad Christmas sweater almost.
And that's going to
You
take some
point out
getting
that
used
the
to.
black made it look like they had suspenders on.
Yeah, because it comes right over the shoulder and
I
goes
get
down the
you want your
belt.
refs to look a little different, but
True.
I mean refs are refs in every league. Like why does it have to be that much different? I just don't get it.
Yeah, and there were several women
Yes,
referees
there
too,
were.
which I thought was great. A couple of games, I saw two women on the field at the same time uh, as referees or game officials, and that might have been that way for all four games. I'm not sure, but I know there was at least one, if not two, women on every officiating crew, which was great. I enjoyed seeing that. All right, let's see. Uh, we talked about the beer snake. We talked about the Battlehawks coming back. We kind of talked about that sideline reporter. God, that made me mad.
Yeah,
He was in the he just happened to be in the end zone when a touchdown was scored, and he's running on the field, basically trying to push his way into the celebration with the players to get a quick quote. And I don't think he ever did. He finally caught up to the guy uh, in the in the sidelines later on. But gosh, that was just it looked made him look so bad.
it did.
Um,
It was weird. Like I get like some people are into this all access thing.
yeah, it's too much.
I think it's a little too much. Like I don't mind them interviewing players on the sidelines, in between plays or whatever, but to be right there in their faces while they're celebrating
Yep.
in the end zone, get out of here. I think they did tone that down the rest of the, like don't do what this guy did. Get your questions on the sideline. But even then, I'm a little uh skeptical at like their approach to yeah, you want to get access, yeah, you want to show these guys personalities, but at the same time, it's almost like just let their play on the field speak for themselves.
Yeah. Well,
But other people are gonna feel differently. We're
yeah.
kind of old curmudgeons that way. But
Well, I understand that they want that to be what the XFL is kind of about. We want to be different. We want to have all this access. But a lot of the times when they are interviewing a coach or a player, it seems like it's the wrong time. They're not into speaking to you at that moment. I know these coaches are aware that that's what they're going to do. They're going to come and they're going to ask you a question, uh, maybe at an inopportune time while the game is going on or right after an interception or something like that. So the coaches tried to do the best they could, but at times you could just tell they didn't want to answer these questions, or they were upset that they had to answer these questions. And the answers that you got from these people, whether it's a player or a coach, were nothing. I
Yeah.
mean, there was nothing, no great quote, nothing that's going to be on a headline in a newspaper. It was garbage.
Yeah.
So I don't care for it. Tone it back a little bit. Get your stuff on the sidelines. Maybe several plays after something happens, not immediately. Give the guy a chance to rest and think about what's happened, and then go ask him a question about what happened on that play or whatever.
Right.
You might get a better answer, but right now it's hard to watch
Yeah.
sometimes. Let's see. What I thought was interesting was that the owners were there for all four games. Dwayne Johnson, Danny Garcia, and Jerry Cardinal were at all the games. On Saturday, they were in Arlington, and then they flew to Houston for the second game. On Sunday, they started out in San Antonio, and then they flew to D.C. for that night game. I thought that was awesome that they made all four games that first weekend to show
Yep.
their support for everybody.
Very committed. Like I said, very good optics from the ownership side of things. So we'll see what
Yeah.
they're talking a good game. They're showing a good game right now. We'll see how it carries.
Yeah, I doubt we'll see him at every game every week, but
Well, yeah, Dwayne's got like 8 movies to film, probably.
but I just think if they show up to maybe one game every weekend, that would be awesome.
We might not see them till the playoffs or even the
Could be.
championship game at this
Could be.
point.
Yeah,
So
we'll see how much they show up to games. But I thought it was awesome they did it for this first weekend. It had to be a lot of traveling. I mean, 3 games they were at were in Texas, and then Washington D.C. was the last one. But I did like that they were there for every one of them. The replays and the challenges I thought were very efficient. Maybe we don't have to give Dean Blandino so much screen time, but I thought the whole process, which you kind of got a chance to see, he's looking at a huge screen and he's got all kinds of camera angles that he can choose from and take a look and slow it down or whatever. So I thought that was interesting, but we don't need to see that all the time or with every challenge.
no, I get it. I'm hoping like
Just
for week 1, you get that novelty out of the
right,
way, and
right,
going forward, we can just if you cut to him, you cut to him, but you don't have to linger on it. You can
right,
maybe get a couple of crucial bits here and there. But for some of these smaller, like was he offsides or was he not? Like we don't need. Oh, can I get camera angle 2? Can I
yeah,
get yeah? No,
yeah. We don't.
just go to
Yeah,
your commentator. That's why you're paying commentators. Pay the commentators to commentate and speculate, and then just move the game along. I get some people want all that access, but I just feel like it's unnecessary at certain points. Like, hey, if it's a toe draggy or a touchdown, you know, it could be a touchdown, it could not be a touchdown, crucial point of the game. Then yeah, maybe we want to be like, okay, what is the thought process behind this big play during the game instead of this first quarter offsides or not offsides that isn't really going to impact the
right,
game yet. Like that we could do without. But your fourth quarter, game on the line, big challenge play, yeah. You know what? In that moment, I want to be compelled. I want to be on the edge of my seat and then hearing Dean Blandino break it down and being like, does he see what we think we see? Or is he seeing something else? Or is it so close that we get his rationale for why they would stand with a call or why they would not stand with a call? So that's where I would want that to go. But we'll see. They're probably going to keep cutting to Dean because they're probably
right.
paying him a lot of money. So they got to show his face probably 3 or 4 times a game.
Yeah,
Where did they ever say where this command center was?
yeah. I don't know.
Is it in a traveling food truck or something that
I
they got going around the country? Like I
no,
don't.
no. It's got to be one central location. I just don't know where it is.
I'm
Might
not
be
sure.
Los Angeles. Might be
Maybe
New
where
York.
their league office is.
Yeah.
He is in L.A. probably. So
But another thing about Dean Blandino is he knows the rules better than you and I do. Where you and I might
well, yeah,
think,
come up with the rules
well,
for this league.
but we might say, well, definitely that was a catch. Well, no, that's if it's NFL rules, but in the XFL, it's this way,
Yeah.
so that is considered not a catch or whatever. He can break that down, which is great. Because not everybody just assumes they're playing by NFL rules, but they're not.
Yeah, there was that one call where a guy had 1 foot down,
Yeah,
and the fans started booing because they're like, that shouldn't be a catch. He only got 1 foot. Well, the
right.
rule is it's college
Yeah,
rules. It's
yep.
1 foot
In
down.
the XFL, you only need 1 foot or one
So
body part in bounds to have a completed catch. So there you go.
yeah,
Let's see. There was no end zone design at the DC game, which was a little
a
disappointing.
little weird. I haven't seen anything about why that was like that.
Yeah, I haven't either. But yeah, all the other, the other 3 games, they all had their end zones painted up with the team logos
Yeah,
and
just a
names.
little
So,
aesthetic thing we noticed.
yep. And let's see. And you already announced that the San Antonio location is going to be the XFL Championship game site, and that's going to be on Saturday, May 23rd. So
But yeah, overall, week 1, I'm all in.
yeah.
Give me some more XFL.
Yeah, it was interesting, exciting. I didn't really realize that they were going to have a Thursday night game this week, so my Battlehawks are going to be playing Thursday night, so I'll get to see that. You probably won't see much of that game because you got to work Friday.
Probably not.
But yeah, so Thursday night football is back, and off with another week 2 of the XFL. One other score.
Oh, I guess the scoreboard isn't over.
Yeah, we mentioned this last week. I didn't have all the details last week, but I got a few more details. The Kawasaki Grizzlies defeated the Shizuoka uh,
Shizuoka Falcons?
Shizuoka. Shizuoka. I don't know. I'm not sure. Falcons by the score of 28-8. This was the final game of the 22-23 season in the Japan Private Football Federation, the JPFF, which is like their version of semi-pro football over there, or amateur football, and it's open to anybody 18 to 60 years old can participate. Man, I wouldn't want to be 60 years old and out there playing football, but they're going to allow it. And it's an east-west format kind of game. So a little more details on the score we mentioned last week in the JPFF Ocean Bowl 28. And those details came from our man in Japan, Greg James, who I was fortunate enough to be on a podcast with him last Friday night. It was episode 2 of his Gridiron America radio podcast. Greg and I talked about the CFL. We talked XFL. We talked USFL and arena football, all in one podcast. So we covered a lot of ground over an hour, and it was great. He's in Japan. I'm here in Kalamazoo, but it's almost like he was right next door doing a Zoom call with him. So it was great. I hadn't really seen him since last summer when we got together in Chicago. Visited a bunch of graves around town, and it was good catching up with him. And so if you want to check that out, we'll have a link to that in the YouTube description.
Well, probably the bio of both,
yes,
wherever you find the podcast.
But I also sent out a link to it on our Facebook and Twitter pages last Friday night, I think. Okay, and that is it for this week's World of Football scoreboard. So now we're going to move on to some NFL news and a couple of items that you brought to my attention just a little while ago. New York Giants quarterback Daniel Jones has fired his agent after negotiations on a new $40 to $45 million contract bogged down. Looks like he may be put on, what is it? Not waivers. When they force you to stay one more
franchise
year.
tag?
Franchise tag, yes. So, and he'll probably be making maybe $32 million if that's the case.
Man,
Daniel
Jones is still not quite to that level to where I think he deserves to be paid the kind of money. I know the quarterback position, it's kind of been irrelevant. Your status is, if you're a quarterback, you just get paid a certain amount of money now. I don't know what this will, depending on how he gets paid, that could really affect the quarterback market, because I'm sorry, I don't think Daniel Jones is anywhere near deserving of a big contract. He had a decent year this year, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, made the playoffs.
I thought Daniel Jones had a big step up this year, but I think he'll get franchise tagged. I think they'll go another year and see what they got in him.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, either way, he's going to get paid.
Yeah,
it's just a matter of how much is he going to get paid.
Yeah. And in another story, Kansas City offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy has signed with the Washington Commanders to be their offensive coordinator. Kind of weird that he would take a lateral move.
Very weird.
He's been with the Kansas City Chiefs for the last 5 seasons, but from what I was reading, a lot of people thought that being in Kansas City, he's
kind of been stuck in a
and if he can go somewhere else and recreate what he's done in Kansas City, it would give him a much better chance of getting a head coaching job than just staying in Kansas City.
I don't blame him for that, but man, Washington though,
you've got your work cut out for you.
Yes, if he really wants to be a head coach,
if he can make it there, he can make it anywhere.
If he really wants to be a head coach, I mean, good for him. Part of me would feel like I had a good thing there with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, and now I'm going to
2 rings.
Washington to who's the quarterback there? What's the ownership situation? It's just, I don't know. That's that environment right now. I just don't know if I want to be. Nothing against Ron Rivera. I think Ron Rivera is great coach, great dude, and I wouldn't mind working for him. But just that organization as a whole, man, I get it. You want to be a head coach so bad, and I think Eric Bieniemy has deserved it the last several years to at least get a shot, and he hasn't really gotten a shot. Mm-hmm. And if this is what it's going to take, then cool. I wish him the best, but part of me also feels like I could get a couple more Super Bowls with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Like maybe I'll stay around.
You got a good thing going here, but I'm going to leave it all behind and start at the bottom again and
Yeah.
try and do this all over again. Oh well. Moving on to some college news. I just saw this a little while ago. College football executives are considering 4 rule changes to speed up the game that could be implemented as soon as this fall. I know you haven't seen these yet, so let me
Well,
run
can I
down these.
guess? Is one of them getting rid of the fourth quarter? Is another one
No,
changing the time limits?
no. One of them is prohibiting consecutive timeouts for, say, like you want to ice the kicker.
Yeah.
You can't call 2 timeouts just for
I
the.
always thought they couldn't do that anyway.
Well, yeah, they do a lot. So that's one of them, prohibiting consecutive timeouts. The second one is no longer extending a first or third quarter for an untimed down if the quarter ends on a defensive penalty.
Oh.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. Just first and third quarter, you don't need to get one more play for the third quarter. Save that for the fourth quarter. Let's see. The third one is the clock will continue to run after an offense gains a first down, except inside 2 minutes and a half. So it's like a running clock. Um,
Well, it's like normal, except
right. They stop it so they can reset the change and then they start it up again. So now they're not gonna do that. They're
yeah.
just gonna keep the clock rolling and let the clock run while they reset the chains.
Except
So
under 2 minutes, which I like. I kind of like that rule.
right. Yes. Yeah. That's fine. And then the last one is the clock will continue to run after an incomplete pass once the ball is spotted for play. So they'll
Ooh.
stop it just long enough to reset the ball and then start the clock again.
Wow, that'll really speed up the game.
Yeah.
Dang.
So
Okay.
those are the 4 possible changes. I don't know if any of them are going to get adopted. They might all get adopted. I don't know, but I just read those today and I thought that was interesting. So
It is very interesting.
we'll throw those in here.
I was wondering why they didn't do that with the incomplete pass. Like, yeah, you stop the clock for a minute until you get it reset, then start it back up. Like, I'm surprised even the NFL hasn't done something like that. Speed the game up a little bit.
Well, it could be some of the TV networks are also pushing for this. They want their games held within that 3-hour time span so they can
Yeah.
do something
I
else.
thi- And I think maybe even doing that would be good for player safety too. That's just less time these guys got to be
Right.
on the field too. I
Right.
mean, yeah, I'm all for that.
Yeah, I have no problem with all 4 of those. They're fine by me. All right, the USFL news: the college player draft is taking place as we speak.
Yeah.
It might be over by now. I don't know, but it started at 1 o'clock today. We kind of got an early start on today's podcast, but um, one of the things that's going on is there are no trades during the draft. You can't trade draft picks and you can't trade players while the draft is going on. It's a 10-round draft. In the first 3 rounds, you get 5 minutes to make a selection, and in the rest of the rounds, starting with round 4, you get 3 minutes. A total of 80 players are going to be selected of around 3,000 players that are eligible. These are all college players, by the way. The Michigan Panthers have the number 1 pick, and they selected at 1 o'clock today offensive tackle Jarrett Horst from Michigan State. Now, the New Jersey Generals do not have a first-round pick. They are being penalized for violating the USFL's off-season roster management rules. I have no idea what that means, but they did something wrong, and so they had their first-round pick taken away. All of their picks from round 2 to round 9 will occur at the end of the round, so they're moving them to the end. And in round 10, New Jersey will make their normal pick in the 6th round, or the number 6 overall in that round. And then they will be granted the final pick of the draft to make up for not having a first-round pick. And that will ensure that each of the USFL 8 teams get 10 respective new players.
Yeah. And it looks like as of right now, 7 minutes ago, they posted the results for round 6. So
Okay.
they're probably in round 7 or 8 right now,
Okay.
going on
Okay.
as we speak. So
All right. So yeah, I've already posted a graphic from the USFL about the first overall pick and then the entire first round. So those are at least up right now on our Facebook and Twitter pages, or at least Twitter. I don't know if I did that on Facebook. I can't remember. All right, moving on to some arena football news. Tim Capper of ArenaFan.com interviewed the new AFL commissioner, Lee Hutton III, and he implied during that interview that the first team coming back Looks like it's going to be the New Orleans Voodoo.
Yeah, I heard that and I had to double take. I was listening to their interview, which was a pretty good interview, by the
It
way.
was.
I think Tim, a heck of an interviewer.
Mhm.
I think the commissioner had a couple of times where I felt like, oh, okay, maybe he's not used to doing a whole lot of interviews, but I'd like to see, I think he gave some good answers. He's definitely skirted around some other answers,
Well,
but
yeah, you don't want to give away
you don't want to
everything.
give away everything. I get it, but I just think on the whole, if you're an arena football fan, listen to this interview. It's very insightful. Um, yeah, when he mentioned the voodoo, I know they said they were talking to one possible organization in New Orleans and
Mm.
blah blah blah. And I was like, ooh, okay. So he didn't confirm it, but he just said it was a possibility. So take it with a grain of salt as of right now. But I mean, to get the voodoo back, I always liked the voodoo
Yeah,
color scheme, the
great
logo,
helmet.
everything.
Great
They had
helmet.
some great players down there too. And I think the fan base down there was pretty great too.
Yeah,
They showed out for those games. So
yeah. They also came out with it was either a hashtag or an at, like at AFL Voodoo or something like that. Um, soon after that. So
really,
that's what made everybody assume that okay, they're just announcing one team, which I didn't expect anything like that. I thought it was way too soon
I
for them
haven't seen anything about that.
uh, suggesting that an actual team was going to be coming back. So that was interesting. But yeah, check out Tim Capper's interview with the new AFL commissioner Lee Hutton III on arenafan.com. Just go to arenafan.com and it's right there on the front page right now. It's well worth a listen. Okay, we're going to move on to today's birthdays, February 21st. Guard Ken Huff turns 70 years old today. He played his college football at North Carolina and was selected with the third overall pick in the 1975 NFL Draft by the Baltimore Colts. He played 11 NFL seasons. He was with the Colts from 75 to 82 and with the Washington Redskins from 83 to 85. The other birthday today is wide receiver Braylon Edwards. He turns 40 years old today. Played his college football at Michigan. Was selected with the third overall pick in the 2005 NFL Draft by the Cleveland Browns. Played 8 NFL seasons. He was with the Browns from 2005 to 2009. He was traded to the New York Jets during the 2009 season, and he played for the Jets in 2009 and 2010. And he played for the San Francisco 49ers in 2011. And then he finished his playing career in 2012 with the Jets and the Seahawks. So today's birthdays both included a couple of gentlemen that were the third overall pick in their respective drafts. Okay, now we're going to go on to this week's obituaries. We have 4 this week. This is where we take a moment and honor those who've made the world of football a better place. The first one is that of Red McCombs, a former NFL and NBA owner. He has passed away at the age of 95. McCombs bought the Minnesota Vikings for $250 million in 1998. He sold the team to Ziggy Wilf before the 2005 NFL season. And prior to owning the Vikings, McCombs also was the owner of the NBA's San Antonio Spurs and the Denver Nuggets.
$250 million. Goodness
Yeah.
gracious, that's chump change nowadays in the
Well,
NFL.
that's what 20 years ago.
Well, yeah, almost 30 years
Yeah.
ago at this point.
Yep.
All right, our next obituary is that of Charlie Ferguson, a tight end and wide receiver in the NFL and the American Football League, has passed away at the age of 83. Ferguson played college football at Tennessee State. He signed as a free agent with the Cleveland Browns back in 1961 and played one season there in Cleveland. He also played for the Minnesota Vikings in 1962 and the Buffalo Bills from 1963 to 1969. He won back-to-back AFL titles with the Bills in 1964 and 1965.
Our next obituary is Greg McCacken. No, McMacken. Yeah, McMacken. Yeah, a longtime assistant coach in college, the NFL, and the United States Football League, has passed away at the age of 77. McMacken began his college coaching career at Western Oregon State in 1973. He went on to coach in college at Idaho, San Jose State, Stanford, Oregon Tech, Utah, Navy, Miami, and Texas Tech. He was a head coach at Hawaii from 2008 through 2011. He also coached in the pros with the USFL's Denver Gold in 1985. He was with the Seattle Seahawks from 1995 to 1998 and the San Francisco 49ers from 2003 through 2005.
All right, and our final obituary this week is that of Stanley Wilson Jr., a defensive back in the NFL for 3 seasons, has passed away at the age of 40. Wilson played college football at Stanford and was selected in the 3rd round of the 2005 NFL Draft by the Detroit Lions. He played in Detroit from 2005 to 2007. His playing career was cut short by an Achilles tendon injury. A guy I vaguely remember playing back
I
in the
remember
day,
the
and
name.
it stinks, when you got guys in their 40s just,
Yeah,
going.
no
It's
no
unfortunate.
details on the cause of death, but that is very very young
Yeah.
to be gone already. All right, any other breaking news?
The only thing I saw was Cardinals wide receiver Robbie Anderson, who got traded, I believe, in the middle of the season from the Panthers,
Hmm.
is changing his first name from Robbie to Chosen Anderson. Why? I have no idea. But that is the one thing I've just seen scrolling around the internet.
I see.
So this has been
Okay.
your random thing Adam has found on the internet, brought to you by question marks.
Okay. In that case, let's move on to this week's history lesson. And because it's Black History Month, we've been concentrating on some pioneers in the NFL and college. And today we have a profile of Charles West, who was the first black quarterback to play in the Rose Bowl. The annual Rose Bowl game has featured many historic matchups between big time college football teams over the last 100 plus years. But one of the early games featured a matchup of a school from California and a small, unknown team from western Pennsylvania. The date was January 1st, 1922. The teams playing in the game were the University of California Berkeley Golden Bears and the William and Jefferson Presidents. It was the last Rose Bowl game that was played at Tournament Park before the Rose Bowl Stadium was opened the following year. Washington and Jefferson College only had about 450 students at the time, and it is the smallest college to ever play in the Rose Bowl. So how did Washington and Jefferson end up playing in the game? At the time, the game was known for its format of the best team from the East versus the best team from the West. The Presidents had an undefeated season in 1921, with wins over powerhouse teams Pittsburgh and Syracuse. Washington and Jefferson was considered one of the best teams on the East Coast that year. The Tournament of Roses Association voted unanimously to extend an invitation to the school to play in the 1922 game. Cal had outscored their opponents 312 to 33 that season and was heavily favored to win the game. Washington and Jefferson could only afford to pay for 11 players to travel by train to the game in California. But on the trip, one player got sick with pneumonia and had to be left behind in Kansas City. A replacement player was then sent by train to California to complete the 11-man roster. Over 40,000 fans attended the game, which ended in a scoreless tie, the only one ever in Rose Bowl history. So it is not unusual that the MVP of the game was California punter Archie Nesbitt, who punted 11 times for 407 yards. Making history in the game that day was Charles West, a halfback on the team who was pressed into service as the team's quarterback during the season due to various injuries to other players. As the only black player on the team, West was forced to sit in a coloreds-only train car on the trip to California. But that did not stop his teammates from going out of their way to sit with him. Greasy Neal was the head coach of the Presidents in 1921 and 1922, but in 1923, the head coach was none other than John Heisman. Washington and Jefferson was scheduled to play a Southern school, Washington and Lee, in 1923, but they wanted Heisman not to play West in the game because they did not want to play a team with a black player on it. Heisman and the school refused to sit West out of the game, so Washington and Lee forfeited the game by the score of 1-0. Charles West went on to be named to the 1924 U.S. Olympic track and field team, but an injury prevented him from participating in Paris. After playing college football, West received an offer to play for the Akron Pros of the NFL, but he decided to attend Howard University Medical School in Washington, D.C. instead. He did, however, coach the Howard football team while he was enrolled in medical school. West went on to practice medicine in Alexandria, Virginia for over 50 years. Dr. Charles West died on November 20th, 1979, at the age of 80. He was inducted into the Rose Bowl Hall of Fame in 2017. Washington and Jefferson still plays college football today, but it is at the Division III level. So the 1922 Rose Bowl featured two undefeated teams, the first black quarterback, the smallest school to ever participate, and the only tie game ever in the game's history. Not bad for just the 8th Rose Bowl game ever played.
You know, why not just have one little nugget of history be a part of a game? How about a bunch of stuff for one game?
Yeah, it started out as this profile of Charles West, but there was so much more to this particular game that he was in. It just so many things, so many firsts and things that'll never happen again. There'll never be another tie game again. So just a very interesting story about that whole game and the fact that Charles West was the first black quarterback to ever play in it. Okay, let's move on to this week's upcoming events calendar. Thursday, March 2nd through the 5th, NFL Combine is going to take place in Indianapolis. March 4th, the Champions Indoor Football League regular season begins. March 17th, the Indoor Football League regular season begins. April 16th, the USFL regular season begins. April 27th through the 29th, the NFL Draft in Kansas City. May 22nd, the CFL preseason begins. The very next day, the XFL championship game is going to be played in San Antonio. And finally, on June 8th, the CFL regular season begins. There is no end to football in the world of football.
Nope. Which means we have no lives. We're destined to podcast about it forever.
Pretty much. If there's football being played, we're going to talk about it. And even if there isn't football being played, we're still going to talk about it.
Probably. We'll talk about the leagues that were or the leagues that could be.
All right. Anything else before we close today's show?
No more breaking news. The USFL draft is probably wrapping up right now. Okay. But yeah, I guess we can say we're going to do we have another video coming this week. Keep an eye out for. It'll probably be a few of our suggestions to the Arena Football League for making the league as great as it once was.
Yes.
So look for that this week at some point.
Okay. Well, that's all the time we've got for this week. If you learned something during today's podcast about the incredible amount of diversity that exists in the world of football, then we have done our job. Visit our website at theworldoffootball.com for news, links, upcoming events, original articles, videos, and more. Our email address is info@theworldoffootball.com.
You can like The World of Football on Facebook at TWOF Kalamazoo. You can also follow us on Twitter. The address is at TWOF Kalamazoo. New episodes of this podcast are posted on Tuesdays and are available on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. You can search YouTube for The World of Football Kalamazoo or use the handle youtube.com/@theworldoffootball. We are also on Amazon Music, so please ask your Siri or Alexa device to play the World of Football podcast. Feel free to subscribe, rate, review, give us a like on any and all of those platforms, as well as those comments. We love talking back to you with those comments. Let us know what you think about everything, and please come be a part of the football conversation, especially after we've gotten some XFL comments this last couple of days.
People are watching the XFL.
People are watching the XFL, and they're coming to watch us talk about the XFL and telling us that we're wrong about not enjoying all the great sideline reporting they've been doing.
Yeah, well, I'm glad somebody likes it.
To each their own, but it ain't for us curmudgeons.
And remember, folks, some people may love football more than we do, if you can believe that. But nobody, and I mean nobody, loves more football than the two of us sitting here in this room. Until next time, when we'll try and do a better job, I'm Randy Snow.
And I'm a little jealous that the World of Football YouTube channel has gotten more subscribers than my movie channel. Just a little bitter.
Uh-huh. We'll see you all next week.